Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Town of Avon Board of Zoning Appeals. If you're interested in having a copy of the agenda or the staff reports, they're available on the tables to the right of the audience. This meeting is being recorded for public record. Because of this, we request that personal conversations are kept to a minimum. All cell phones are set to vibrate with phone calls taken outside of chambers. Check. If you're interested in committing during any public hearing, please sign up on the sheets located on the tables to the right of the audience. When your name is called, please step forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please address your comments to the board and not to the staff or the appellant. Your comments should relate directly to the case at hand. We do understand there are several persons who wish to speak. The chair may therefore impose a time limit for each person. Federal law requires that the town make available to all attendees a Title VI public involvement survey. These surveys are on the table to the right of the audience. Members of the public who wish to complete the survey may do so and place them in the designated area. If because of a disability, any person in attendance needs assistance or accommodation to fully participate in this meeting, please notify staff. Thank you for your assistance in facilitating a respectful, fair, and timely meeting. And again, welcome to our meeting. And we are represented by the Boy Scouts tonight. If you'd like to step forward to the podium and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, you're welcome to.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Marcus Turner.
Here.
Ann Inman.
Here.
Marcy Cashler.
Here.
Paul Guckenberger.
Here.
And Charles Bischoff.
Here. All right, next on the agenda, approval of meeting minutes, March 18th and April 15th. Did anyone have any comments, edits? Hearing none, the floor is open for a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes of March 18th and April 15th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, meetings are good. All right, is there any requests for continuances or agenda modifications tonight?
There's none.
And there is no old business either. So moving along to new business. First up, we have VAR 21-08 A and B CVS.
This is VAR 2108. The request has been amended by the petitioner, and it's a request for a grant of a variance of development standards from section 18-8.2 to provide for the location of 3 signs on the south facade and 4 signs on the east facade when there's a maximum of 2 signs permitted. Let's see here. As you get, when the request was originally filed, as you see on your agenda, there were a section A and a section B of this request. The original request was to grant 3 signs on the south facade, 4 signs on the east facade, and also that the total square footage on the facades were going to exceed the maximum of 150 square feet. After the publishing of our staff report, the petitioner did amend the request, changing the size of one of the signs, and then noted that our staff report is in error. I'll go on that a little bit more later. So the new request, as you've heard, is just to locate 3 signs on the south facade and 4 signs on the east facade. And on each facade, there's a maximum of 2 signs permitted. The CVS itself is zoned C2. It is in the tier 1 of the US 36 Highway Overlay District. The property is improved with a pharmacy, and the pharmacy was constructed under the jurisdiction of Hendricks County and subsequently annexed into the town. When it was constructed in the county obviously had different sign standards, and those sign standards allowed for more signage than what Avon's permits. And so it had a number of signs on it. It did in about 2018 to 2019 timeframe. The existing building was remodeled and the signage was removed as part of that remodeling. When the signage was removed, it lost its legal non-conforming use status. And when they attempted to put the signs up, the town would only issue permits for 2 signs per facade. They did get those permits and installed just 2 signs per facade. And that those have the combined square footage of the existing signage is just slightly more than 100 square feet in area. To the west, property is zoned C2, improved with a restaurant. To the east, C2, and also improved with a restaurant. Across US 36 to the south, the properties are also zoned C2 and improved with a pharmacy and a home improvement retail store. And to the north, the property is zoned C2 and improved with a multi-tenant retail center. You see the general location of the use up in the map up in front of you there. And we'll talk a little bit about the amendment of the request. So as I said earlier, the staff report was published. The petitioner contacted staff and sought to amend their request to reduce the size of one of the signs. And we'll have graphics up here shortly to show you that how they've amended the request. In summary, there was a 39.56 square foot sign proposed for the southern and eastern facades on the little blank area just above their main entrance. And they did replace that instead with an 18.33 square foot sign. Additionally, the petitioner informed us that our staff report erroneously indicated the petitioner asked for 4 signs on the southern facade. I was having trouble discerning exactly what the request was when I was reviewing the petition, and I thought that it was 4 signs on each facade when actually there was only 3 signs on the southern facade. The amended request, therefore, now would provide for 3 signs on the southern facade. Now, those 3 signs total slightly more than 109 square feet, and 4 signs on the eastern facade that total of 125 square feet. Since the ordinance allows 150 square feet of signage, the need for the variance of the square footage is not permitted, and the amendment to this request removes that request. Up there, the graphics show you this was the original request with the about 40 square foot sign above the main entrance right there. They've modified it to this, and that graphic now reduced the sign of the size to about 18 square feet and created compliance with the square footage requirements. And this was the original request right here that was submitted with the petition. The petitioner has amended it on the southern facade to include this one. They would remove the one sign, the Minute Clinic sign on the facade, and replace it with the Health Hub sign on this particular facade. Going through our staff report, in our published staff report, we did not believe and we maintain now that this request would not present any potential injury to the public health, safety, or general welfare of the community, nor would the area adjacent to the property be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Signs are a common part of the commercial landscape, and so they would not affect any of the surrounding uses in any way, shape, or form. And we do believe now that a credible argument could be made that providing 3 signs on the south facade with a combined square footage of 125 square feet and 4 signs on the eastern facade with a combined square footage of 109 square feet does represent a minimum deviation from the ordinance when you consider that you could put an additional 25 square feet of signage on the eastern facade and 41 square feet of signage on the southern facade, as long as you limit those signage to 2. So it is possible to make the argument that what the petitioner proposes is less than what in fact could be constructed or located on the facades. We do remain a bit unsure. We're not obviously stringent about our opposition to the variance, where we're not sure really whether there's really a practical difficulty with respect to the number of the signs or whether the need for the variance is caused by the desires of the tenant. I know from my personal experience, I've administered ordinances that are more restrictive. Zionsville's, for instance, allows just one sign on a facade. And I have administered numerous ordinances that are more permissive than Avon's, to the point where in one of them, they were just limited to the square footage. So, they could have 151 square foot signs, or they could have 150 square foot signs. It didn't matter to the city that I worked for at the time. It was just their job to manage the square footage of their signs, and the city didn't get involved in the number of signs that they wanted to put on the things. That said, Avon does have a 2 sign limit in its ordinance, and the request before you is to deviate from that number on both the eastern and southern facades. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you very much.
Any questions for staff at this time? Seeing none, if the appellant is ready for their presentation.
Certainly. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Perfect. Good evening. My name is Gary Potts. I am the owner of Professional Permits. Our offices are located at 58171 Dragonfly Court in Osceola, Indiana. Here tonight representing CVS Pharmacy, who is the tenant, and Cranfield Development, who is the property owner in this particular parcel. Staff did a fantastic job of summarizing the original petition and the amendment. And I want to thank staff for working with us on getting that to the board in a timely manner. The sign package that we are proposing is for the new health hub, and it is a new product offering that CVS is offering at select locations. It's not a nationwide, every store has this offering at this time. It's at select locations, and we're proud that Avon happens to be one of these. So what we would like to do is add the health hub sign. Right now they've got banners, or they did have banners up at the store. So what we wanted to do is, when the original CVS Pharmacy was rebranded to the Heroic Heart that they added to their logo, they went ahead and permitted that, made the change to get the store up to brand, and knowing that they would come back and revisit the store with the hopes of adding the additional signage through a variance request. So just a kind of a background on what we're doing and why we're here tonight. The Health Hub is, if you're not familiar with what it is more for long-term healthcare issues. They're going to continue to offer the Minute Clinic at that location, and Minute Clinic is more of an urgent care type need. So bumps and bruises, sore throats, strep and flu, those sort of tests will still be done there at the urgent care. However, with the Health Hub partnership, they're going to offer diabetes management and hypertension management, obesity, kind of lifestyle things. So that will be an additional care desk where the people can come in and they can set appointments and meet with staff there and speak about maybe the lifestyle issues. And some of those may result from the urgent care visits, and some of them may just result because they are curious and want to go in there and kind of improve their lifestyle. So the additional signage that we had originally proposed was a CVS Pharmacy on the tower, and then the CVS Pharmacy letter set right next to it on the building. We looked at that, and after staff looked at it, and we were over the square footage. I looked at that and I thought, well, we have this Heroic Heart offering that we can put, and I can show it. I think you've already seen it, but I can put it up there. Let me try to share my screen here. So this is what was originally proposed, is this CVS pharmacy, and it's just kind of redundant with the same verbiage here. So when they went to this other option, is just to add the heart.
You're not sharing your screen.
I am not sharing my screen. Let me go
He does
back.
have the option to share though, right? Okay, okay.
Oh,
You did change our view.
learning curve. Let's see. Share window.
I also did distribute to the
You
petition.
got pictures.
Yeah, I distributed your packet.
Okay, thank you.
In paper copy to the petitioners. Oh, there it goes. There it goes right
Okay.
now.
Apologize about that. So this is the new heart that you probably have seen, and kind of will tie in with the heroic heart and also the heart over here on the Minute Clinic. It is their new branding that they have wanted to incorporate. So on this elevation here is an option 2. We would have the heart, CVS pharmacy, continue with the Minute Clinic, which is still there currently. We would just move it to the left and then add the Health Hub sign on that elevation facing Dan Jones. And then on facing 36, as opposed to the CVS pharmacy here, we would add the heart, keep the CVS pharmacy, eliminate the Minute Clinic sign that's here because we just don't feel in the 110 feet that moving the Minute Clinic and adding this would just, it's going to be too crowded and not look aesthetically pleasing. So we have more room on the other elevation to have 4 signs and just have sufficient spacing so it doesn't look so clustered. But we wanted to have it on this side, and then Health Hub takes priority over Minute Clinic as far as a sign hierarchy goes. So the Minute Clinic on this elevation would come down, and we would add the Health Hub. And that is pretty much all of that on this. And let me get back to, there we go. You should be back to me. So that is pretty much what we were asking for. As far as the staff comments on criteria 4 and 5, we certainly do appreciate them working with us on that. What we would say regarding the minimum relief necessary and the number of signs, this is something that we feel like we should offer to the vehicular traffic, let them know that it's coming. We are under the total square footage allowed. So in order, bringing that down, we would request that the product offerings would be able to be offered. If it were separate buildings, if we offered this in a separate standalone space, we would be allowed to have the Health Hub, obviously, because we would be entitled to 2, but putting it all under one roof kind of handicaps us under the ordinance. So we would request the variance be approved, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Does anybody on the board have questions for the appellant?
I have one question. This is Ann Inman. Historically, every CVS that has a Health Hub will also have a Minute Clinic, or are they both not?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wondered if it says Health Hub, does it automatically have a Minute Clinic within the facility?
It is my understanding that those are independent. So if they have Minute Clinic, they do not have to have Health Hub, and vice versa.
Vice versa. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I didn't have a question for the petitioner, but I did want to clarify. The revised request is for how many square feet of signage now?
On the south side, we're about 109, and on the east, we're about 125.
That's right. Yeah. Those are the figures. And of course, the maximum is 150
Per side.
per side, per
Per side
facade.
or total?
Per facade. So they could have 150
Okay.
on the east, 150 on the south.
Okay. So he's below the request is below the maximum.
Yeah, well under in both cases.
And again, there's no need for a variance there.
No need for that particular variance. It's just dealing with the number of signs.
Okay.
So I'd like to follow up, Bill. If they wouldn't split the signs, it said CVS Pharmacy Health Hub, would we consider that one sign?
Yeah, what we would do is, yeah, and that's a good question. If they were like stacked, for instance, we would draw one box around those two signs as though they were one sign. So yes, that is exactly what we would do. If they were like stacked one on top of the other, we would draw one box over it and consider it one sign.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Page 7 of your slideshow, the number 2 sign, the Minute Clinic one, is that the same sign? Or are you just relocating it from the south facade to the east facade? Is that what's happening there?
The one that says page 7. And
Yeah, the Minute Clinic sign essentially, is that just being relocated? Is that what's
exactly. Yes. That's the proposal.
The only dimensions you're kind of missing, which I'm curious about, because we also have on page 7 still, we have a telephone pole that's kind of interrupting the view a little bit, but what's your spacing? What are you looking at doing on that wall?
On page 7.
Yeah. The Minute Clinic and the Health Hub, there you got no dimensions on on how you're centering that amongst that wall.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell with that drawing. And when they photoshopped, looks like there was a tree in there and they photoshopped that out. So basically they're just going to be kind of closer to the opposite edge of that little area there. Because that, the green wall or the green roof comes down and then stops pretty much there. And then that leaves a little bit, about 60 feet. So they would center that health or the Minute Clinic kind of over the windows, and then the Health Hub would be over to the far right. I don't have the exact dimensions.
Reviewing the criterion now, board members. Staff changed their recommendations on 3, 4, and 5. Did I hear you correctly? That you now are,
We didn't really change our recommendation on the practical difficulty, and I've got to remind myself. We did change our recommendation on 1, but we had the same sort of quandary, I think, that was brought out by the question. You know, if the signs were stacked, if there was no space in between them, we would essentially treat them as one sign and draw a rectangle around them. And so it's the fact that they're separated from one another by so much that creates the sort of 3-sign thing. We believe that, let's see here. The providing with a combined square footage, that it represents the minimum deviation. I think that we believe that a credible argument could be made that what they're proposing is a fairly minimum deviation from the ordinance, as what the ordinance states. We were just unsure. We're basically up in the air on the other 2. We couldn't come down one way or another on them. As whether or not there really was a practical difficulty. We couldn't say for sure yes, we couldn't say for sure no. And we sort of lean on a practical difficulty. We usually take a conservative approach on that one.
because I'm kind of sticking with Paul's question because I liked it very much, Paul. And these two signs on page 7, if they stacked them on that side, because right now as it is, I'm having a hard time with criterion 5 being met with them all laid out the way they are. If those signs were stacked to be essentially one sign, I think it would be more symmetrical from both sides of the building that they're proposing to change. So I think a good recommendation would be to have those signs somewhat stacked or in a good, or just a nice straight line. But I think stack would look good on that building right there, personally.
Well, the intent of the ordinance is to minimize the number of signs,
Yep,
and that does it under that scenario. They wouldn't need the variance.
agreed.
And Bill, how do you draw the line as to what the minimum need is under criteria 4?
It's an art. It's an art, not a science, you know?
That's why we are judiciary.
Yeah.
We are to make that judgment per case.
Yeah, that's the problem on some of these, you know, on a lot of them. Practical difficulty was a practical difficulty. There is a sort of a legal standard of that, what a practical difficulty is, and we can definitely bring you, concrete proof. Like the classic one would have been the one at the last meeting where you had 3 front yards on one lot, making that definitely creates a practical difficulty, and that is the textbook example. But when you get into something like this, you know, it's unfortunately, as bad as this answer is, you as the quasi judicial body for the town are the ones that makes that call, and what you say is essentially what goes.
So one of the things that we've talked about in the past too is the safety, that the more signs you have, the more time you're looking at the signs and you're not focused on the road. And the idea of if you condense the signage into the square footage, like stacking it so it's all in one area, there's less to be looking at as opposed to looking across and down the whole building. So again, one of the reasons why that when we have the signage ordinance is to reduce distractions to the drivers.
I really appreciate you doing away with the redundancy of having 4 CVS signs. I think the heart really looks good, looks better than when it's blank. It needed something, but I think getting rid of the CVS was a big improvement. Thank you.
You're welcome. I agree.
Does the appellant have any concerns or issues overstacking these signs or elongating them?
As far as the stacked signs go, I don't know if that's something that CVS would be willing to do. More than likely, what they would most likely do is the Minute Clinic sign would be removed off of that elevation. But if 3 signs are approved, whether it be a combination of those 2 stacked or a Minute or a Health Hub by itself, that's probably, something that they would just have to determine. If the board was comfortable with 3 signs on each side, be it what we talked about.
Yep. Go ahead, Paul.
Public opinion.
We're getting there.
Okay.
Is there any other questions for the appellant or staff at this time? Hearing none, we will open up the floor for public comment at 7:29. Is anyone signed up? No one signed up. Is anyone in the audience that would like to step forward and comment on CVS signage? Hearing none, at this time, we will close the public comment. All right, Board of Zoning Appeals, is there any other final comments or questions for staff or the appellant?
So just make a comment. So I don't disagree with staff's evaluations of the petition. The one thing I would say for practical difficulty is that with the way the new proposed signage where they use the heart on the one facade and eliminate the redundancy, because I agree with Ann that I think that makes the building much cleaner and better in the signage there. To me, you got the heart And if they comply with the square footage, then having 3 signs or 2 signs on the heart seems like would be acceptable.
Go ahead, Marcy.
Mr. Potts, one more question, and is this the first time that this has ever happened, or is there a precedent? How's this been handled by corporate, or I'm just kind of wondering what the history is there?
Thank you for that question. To answer your question regarding has there been a precedent, I'm trying to think. I haven't personally represented any that are limiting the number of signs. The ones that we have done have only been for square footage. And I've only done one other one for Health Hub related, and that one was in Ohio. That's a different jurisdiction, and it was approved. But so it really, the only other problem that it was also Architectural Review Board, and they actually had a problem with the blue on the window sign, so they just removed it. So that's really the only thing Health Hub wise that's been the history. So I don't know if I helped you or not.
Any other questions, comments, concerns at this time? If there is none, floor is open for a motion.
So I would like to make sure for the board here, as far as we're voting on the variance for the number signs, because the variance for square footage has been withdrawn.
That is correct.
Okay. I'll be glad to make a motion. Well, we've got to make a motion and with conditions on this. So, Mr. Potts, I don't know if you'd like to know the condition before I make the motion. Make the motion with a
Make the
limit.
motion and, because unless you have a direct question for him, but you can't really ask him, is this motion okay with you?
I will go with that. I move that we approve VAR 2108, a variance of development standards from section 18-8.2 to provide for the location of 3 signs on the south facade and 3 signs on the east facade, since it has satisfied all the requirements for variances under state law and subject to the approved findings of fact.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor with the motion
Sorry, are we gonna have any discussion on this?
on the motion?
Yeah,
If you'd like to have a discussion, I'm sure.
the discussion after motion's made. I guess I can't find any practical difficulty in this. We just seem to have glossed over the issue and assume it's there. The question is, what's the practical difficulty in the use of the property? There is none. That pharmacy has been there as long as I've been in Avon, and it's always operated as a pharmacy. And the number of the signs does not affect that in any way. So I've heard no discussion on what the practical difficulty is. And then we talk about the minimum necessary. I think we answered that in our previous discussion. We determined that, hey, they can stack those signs and be within the terms of our ordinance. So I don't think number 4 is valid. And then number 5, the variance was not caused by the owner or previous or present. Well, if there's no practical difficulty, then why are they changing the sign? They're changing the sign because they're changing their marketing. And that is caused by the owner. So I don't think we've met 3 of these criteria.
Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah,
Question, go ahead, Paul.
after you, Ann.
Marcus, are you a little confused on where you stood on the stacking of it because you used the term 3 signs, so I didn't know if,
They can take their 150 feet and put anything they want in it. So when I say stacking, they can get any message, any words, any logo they want within that sign. So they can all make it into one as long as it's within that square footage. And I think we talked about that previously, where, hey, they wouldn't even need a variance of any kind if they did that. So they can do what they want to do with the area they have.
but the heart is considered a sign. So that makes it 3 signs, not 2.
So if we would agree that the heart looks good on that facade where it's located at, then I would want to restate my motion to put a condition that only the heart could go there. So my reasoning behind the practical difficulty is without being able to do this, they wouldn't be able to sufficiently advertise the service that they're providing to the community. And to stack all of the information, the CVS pharmacy with the health hub and the heart would tend to look, I think, aesthetically displeasing. So the idea of this, they're meeting the square footage, they just have this one symbol, and then they have the words and the 2 signings.
Mitchell, a quick question for you. With what they presented as the heart, would really an amendment be needed if this is what they have presented? They can't deviate from what they presented, correct?
That's correct. It would have to be what they presented. I don't have that in front of me right now. I didn't get a copy of the amendments, so but I believe from what I understand that would be the case.
So the motion on the floor is 3 sides on the sign, which they will have to, because we can't sit here and design it for them either. They would have to make the decision on what they would want to do with the Minute Clinic and
Health
the
hub.
Health Hub.
I do want to be clear that the reason I made the motion the way I did was with the intent that it is with the heart logo. So because we wouldn't place any conditions, the way the motion reads is 3 signs, square footage. So they could come back, say, we give you 3 signs with words on the facade where the heart is, and we've met the motion. And that's why I would want to amend that. But I think, I'd be interested in the other members' positions too, because I think Marcus brings up a valid point.
And I'll jump in to say that I don't think we can make that a condition because I don't think the court would find that reasonable because CVS could change their logo tomorrow and they might not always have that heart logo. So a condition specifying that the heart has to be in a certain location, I think would be an unreasonable condition. I think we need to stick to 3 signs no matter what they say or what they look like, but just focusing on the amount and the placement. I think that's the issue when you get into a practical difficulty because it's, is there something unique about the facade or the building or the layout of the building to, 36 that makes it difficult to have only 2 signs. And while that's a tough standard to define, the reasoning that we have the next 2 standards, which are not caused by the owner and minimum necessary, is to kind of help the BZA frame that practical difficulty question. So it's kind of those 2 criteria at the end are kind of an expansion on our thinking of what a practical difficulty is.
And if they took a sign down, they would technically have to come back for another variance to put a 3rd sign back up, correct? Because the variance only applies to what was presented today. If they took one down, now they're back to Avon Town standards, which is 2.
It depends on how quick it is, and that's how they lost their non-conforming use in 2019. Is that correct?
That's
They
correct.
took it down for too long?
They took it down, yeah. Once they removed the signs, they abandoned the legal non-conforming use. And so they had to comply with the ordinance when they put new signs up.
You know what that time limit is by chance?
Not off the top of my head, I want to say, I think it's immediate, quite frankly. I mean, if it's a total removal of the sign, then it's considered abandoned. When you get into time limits and amortizing an LNCU, usually it's something to the effect of that the sign, well, you can't do this anymore, but you used to be able to say if the sign is advertising something that's no longer there for 6 months, then the sign loses its status. But after the Gilbert decision, you really can't do that anymore.
So let me clarify for my own brain here. If whatever we decide, whether it be 2 signs or 3 signs, or 4 signs, they can then don't have to do what we're seeing here in this picture. They can reorganize and put things wherever they want, as long as they meet the number of signs that we've approved. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I would, if you are interested in putting a condition on the variance grant, I would just say that you have to limit that condition to a time, place, or manner restriction. So you can't go into content at all. So if you are looking at putting a condition on it, it's going to have to be a time, place, or manner restriction that's reasonably related to the impact of the sign that you're that's being requested.
Is there an amendment on the floor that is wanting to be proposed?
Can you read back the amendment or the motion that was made? Because
Or do we have to vote it down, or?
Yeah, I took notes here.
I can restate it. I just thought it was for official record.
Oh,
Because the condition was 3 signs,
yeah, you made the motion for 3 signs, both sides.
both sides.
Yep.
Is there a further amendment that we're looking for or thinking about?
If none, let's take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's do a roll call.
To approve the current,
The motion is to approve
we have
section,
roll call Marcus Turner,
Against?
Ann Inman,
Deny?
Marcy Tashler. Opposed. Paul Guckenberger,
4.
Charles Bischoff,
and 4. Motion is denied. With motion denied, is there a new motion?
I'll make a motion that we deny variance VAR 21-08, a variance of development standards from section 18-8.2 to provide for the location of 3 signs on the south facade and 3, is that correct? 3 signs on the east facade?
Yeah.
Okay. Since it has not satisfied all the requirements for variance under state law and subject to the approved finding of fact.
Discussion on the motion?
Is it possible to see, for them to come back and show us a revision?
If it's denied, they wouldn't have to show us a revision because then they would just be meeting town standards. Unless they came back with a new revision that didn't meet town standards and would be requesting a new variance again.
And Bill, is there a time limit on how long it is before they come back? Isn't it like a year?
I would have to take a look at the rules of procedure. I don't know if there is, off the top of my head, I don't know if there is what's called like a cooling off period where there's a limitation on coming back to the BZA.
Mitchell, do you know that?
Sorry, I was just pulling up my system. I don't know it off the top of my head, but if you give me 2 minutes, I can probably get it for you.
Yeah, please do, Mitchell.
No, what did I do with them? Oh, here we go.
Well, I don't see anything in the rules of the BZA that would prohibit a petitioner from filing a new variance request if the BZA denies it.
I don't see that either. I agree with Bill.
Okay, so it sounds like they could come back next, or I guess next month. They wouldn't make the time frame, but they could be back in July.
It would be, yeah. Trying to remember, I think the June window just closed, so it'd be a July window.
Is there any further discussion at this time then?
Do we have a second?
Oh, yeah, good point. Do we have a second on the motion?
I'll second the motion.
We have a second. Let's go to, let's just go to roll call.
Okay, so this is a motion to deny
Yes.
the variance. Marcus Turner,
4?
Ann Inman,
4?
Marcy Tashler, Paul Guckenberger,
Against?
and Charles Bischoff.
Against.
Motion approved, 3-2, or motion to deny was approved, 3-2.
Well, thank you to the appellant for coming tonight. Maybe we'll see you here soon, or we look forward to what you do with the building. So thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Other business, we have signatures. I'll get that started.
I do have a couple of other items of other business. Once you get the signatures. As you're aware, the election or the vice chairman position is vacant. So one of the needs of the BZA is to fill that vacancy by electing one of its members as the vice chairman.
Are you wanting to do that election tonight or save it for the next meeting? Because
I think
you'll
we-
actually, one of my announcements tonight is that tonight's actually my last meeting, so.
That's the reason I think we need to do it tonight, because then we won't have a chairman or a vice chairman at the next meeting.
Okay, I was thinking about the new person that might be coming on board next month though, too.
Yeah, I mean, my concern would have been is that the vice chairman is vacant right now. And since this is your last meeting, at the next meeting, we don't have a vice chairman, a chairman or a vice chairman.
Okay.
So at least we could elect a vice chairman at this meeting, you'd have someone to preside over the next meeting, elect a chairman. And if that happens to be the vice chairman, then you'd elect a new vice chairman at that meeting as well. But I think I act as the secretary of the Board of Zoning Appeals, which means that I would at least have to run the next meeting for about 15 minutes, because I would call if I were to call the meeting to order at the next meeting, because we don't have a chairman or a vice chairman, my first act would be to do those elections first thing.
Yep.
So that I could step back from that role in the Board of Zoning Appeals.
What's the board's consensus? You want to hold them tonight or wait till next month? One next month, Paul?
I think we ought to do it tonight.
Tonight, Marcus?
I should probably do it tonight.
I'm fine with
Yeah.
that.
Okay, well, let's hold the election then. All right, so do we have any nominations for the chair?
Well, be the vice chair is all you
Vice
need.
chair.
You're still the chair until your
until after
resignation is effective.
Oh,
You leave your chair.
I was looking forward to throwing this gavel. All right, so any nominations for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Paul for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Ann for vice chair.
Well, first nomination, do we have a second for Paul? Hearing none, do we have a
Can accept the nomination.
second for our second nomination, Ann?
You better tell
I'll second Ann. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Ann as vice chair, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, Ann.
And then the other item of other business is that the department has hired a new senior planner. He's sitting to my left, Ian Loera. We're training him up, so I'll be continuing here for the next meeting or two, providing the guidance for you, but his ultimate responsibility will be your point of contact with the staff, and he'll be your staff planner for the Board of Zoning Appeals. So in about 3 meetings, the only time you'd see me is in the unfortunate instance of an administrative appeal comes before you, and then I would take that one. But for the most part, I think I'd step back and let Ian do the planning work for the Board of Zoning Appeals. So I just wanted you to know that.
Well, you really didn't get his feet wet tonight, did you? You got some doozies ahead of you, I guarantee it. Welcome aboard. And yes, tonight is my last night, so thank you all. It's been, I think I've been doing this for Avon for 4.5 years now, so time goes fast. But it was great doing it. I loved it. I've done BZA overall for over 10 years, so, and 4.5 years, so.
Just want to say,
I'm assuming it's job related.
It is job related, yes.
yeah, it's been good serving with you on and off as I've been on and off the board and commission. So wish you the best in future endeavors.
Thanks, Paul. And my position is Plan Commission appointed, so the Plan Commission will have to appoint this new position to replace me, I believe, so. So thank you all. Is there any other business tonight?
Just have a thing. I want to thank you, Charles, again for your service to the town. You came in about the same time I did. And since you've been on the BZA, I don't think I've seen anyone that's come to a meeting more prepared and asked better questions than you. So just appreciate all your service and wish you the best of luck.
I also asked questions where you rolled your eyes too, so.
Absolutely.
That was just to get conversation going though. All right, well, with that, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.